Okay, so here we are starting our first in-class recorded lecture. There we go. All right, so I'll turn it to the screen. And I want to go to, how come? Oh, play. Here we go. It is recording right now. It's just recording me pointing at the screen. Okay, here we go. All right. So this is going to be kind of an overview, as I mentioned to you guys, of some of the main points from this unit. And I'm going to see if I can get my remote clicker to work. Okay, so here we go. Looks like it's not working. Oh, there we go. Okay. So when you look through this unit, there are a number of terms that are key vocabulary. When you're looking at the information in the book, when you are reviewing the terms that are in, like on your vocabulary list for your vocabulary quiz, really these 5 terms are kind of the headings for everything else. Everything else fits within the notion of place, region, scale, space, or connections. So everything we've talked about, everything you guys have read, all of the vocab terms that you guys have reviewed, all of the activities that you have done really fit into one of these 5 concepts. And these are really the 5 key concepts of the work of geography and geographers. And I think it helps when, thinking about all these terms that we've been sort of going over, talking about distance and sight, understanding how they fit within these kind of 5 major themes of geography, okay? So what I'm going to do in this lecture, or this portion of the lecture, I'm going to start doing it because we'll probably have a little bit more in our next class, is I want to start walking you through some of the major topics related to these 5 themes, okay? So the first one I want to talk to you guys about is place. And place is sort of a unique location of a feature. That's what we're talking about. Something that is unique, that sort of uniqueness, right? And uniqueness is a notion that is talked about in a couple of different places within the definitions of some of the terms that you guys have looked at. And in one of those places where uniqueness, it's location. And location is made up of place names, site, situation, and mathematical location. So all of these 4 subtopics are elements of place. So somebody tell me they're elements of location, which is an element of place. So somebody tell me, what's a toponym? Isaac. Right, a toponym is a name given to a place, right? And toponyms, there's lots of different categories for toponyms, and that was on one of your reading quizzes. Somebody give me a category for a toponym. Nate. Yeah, people. Can you think of an example of a toponym that is sort of based on a person? Okay, Washington, great example. Madison, Wisconsin. Who's that named after? Yeah. One that I find really interesting is, and if my beautiful map in the back room is finished, I can point to where in the world this is, but in West Africa, there is a country called Liberia. Liberia is on the sort of western tip, on the Horn of Africa, it's called. So if you envision this bump part of Africa, Liberia is right over here. And Liberia is one of 2 countries in Africa that were never colonized during the colonial period, Liberia and Ethiopia. And one of the reasons it wasn't colonized was because it was actually originally established by the United States as sort of a protectorate for slaves that wanted to go back to Africa. There was this movement, this abolition movement in the United States that was calling for the United States government to abolish slavery, right? You guys learned all about that. And one of the things that the government tried to do at one point to appease these abolitionists was to help establish this homeland for these freed slaves. And they called it Liberia. Can you guess what that is named for? Liberia. I'm going to write down how you spell it. That might help. What do you think, Abby? Liberty. Yes. Liberia. Now, that's a toponym. Liberia. Yeah, that's a toponym that's not named after a person, which I'm going to get to that in just a second. But it is actually taken from another language. So that's another example of a toponym. You can have, words that are taken from different languages that mean different things. But the capital of Liberia is actually named after the President of the United States at the time that this country was established. And this is the name. That's the name of the capital of Liberia. That's how I always remember the name of the capital of. Can you guys figure out how to pronounce that? Monrovia. Who's the president? It was James Monroe. And so that's a toponym that's named after a person, Monrovia. So there's another example. What's another example of a kind of toponym? Yeah, give me an example of one. What was the one I used on our quiz? Do you remember, Matt? You look like you remember. Ground Zero, right? Ground Zero, it's a historical event. That's the name of a place based on a historical event. And sometimes those things get mixed up. Like Gettysburg, the event is named after the place. The place is not named after the event. So you have to be careful when you're making those distinctions. What is a site? Somebody tell me, how do we define site? Look at this guy. He knows what it is because he's been studying. Go ahead. Yes, site is, so the toponym is, thank you, very good. The toponym is the name, right? The site is the physical characteristics. So the site that this school is on is, how would you describe it? Physical characteristics of this site. Okay, there is farmland to, what direction is that? We should probably know our cardinal directions from here. Yep. Rural, but you want to be even more specific with site. You want to talk about like agricultural, Yep. We have like hill behind us, so it's actually a hill region. And then if you go further up, we're going to get into the Baraboo Bluffs, right? So all that stuff relates to site. If you're near a river, we have a creek that runs through our town, so that's part of our site. What is situation then? Oh, look at these hands. Yeah. Yes. So what is the situation of Lodi, Wisconsin? Nate? Yes, this school, we're in the western part of we're west of the downtown of Lodi, Wisconsin, right? North of Madison, right? South of Wisconsin Dells. We are east of Highway Interstate 94, right? South of Canada, yeah, good. So then what's mathematical location? Let's see who else. Somebody who hasn't answered yet. All you guys have answered. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually the mathematical location. Let's see if I can get, there we go. So mathematical location, we're talking about meridians, we're talking about parallels, right? So being able to define things based on their precisely described locations. And the precisely described locations are based on this invention. I mean, the invention of parallels and meridians is something that is really important and has been important for the development of geographers, especially in terms of being able to locate things accurately. And so mathematical location gives us that ability. And with the invention and use now of things like GPS, how does that improve our ability to do things mathematical location-wise? Yes, you can combine both, right? You can have situation and then add on to that mathematical location. You need to sharpen. Go ahead. There we go. This is what my pencil sharpener sounds like. Enjoy. Now everybody gets to anybody on the World Wide Web can enjoy the sound of my pencil sharpener. What country does the prime meridian go through? Yes, England. Greenwich. We should I should have done this. If I would have thought of it, I would have done it. If you listen to BBC World News, Greenwich Mean Time, like they do when the BBC is doing. If you're anybody ever listen to BBC radio? Really late at night. If I'm driving places, that's usually the only thing that's on. And so the BBC World News, Greenwich Mean Time, and so they'll give you the time in Greenwich time, and they're talking about the time at the prime meridian. Okay, so let me ask you this. Here's a little trivia note, boys and girls. I have a friend, his name is Joshua, and he is from the country where the prime meridian and the equator meet. Do you know what country? Now, it's a little tricky, and I'll tell you Joshua's story about this. What do you think it is, Isaac? Well, first of all, what part of the world do you know it's generally going to be in? Okay, he's from Africa. What part of Africa? Oh, you're so close. Nigeria is the center of the world. This is what Joshua says. Joshua, when he was talking to a group of my students one time, and again, if my beautiful map is done, I can just point to it. But, he said, "I am from Nigeria. It is the center of the world." Like, he is a really funny, sweet guy, and he works in this like research lab in the university, and so he is in like a dark basement all day. So I think he really likes it when he gets to talk to students because he gets to talk to people. And he said, yes, it's the center of the world because it's where the prime meridian and the equator meet. But here's the trick. I said, but Joshua, it actually meets, and I'm going to step out of camera, so if you're watching this later, you'll have to just imagine. It actually meets out here in the ocean. So you actually have the prime meridian out here. I'm sorry, the meeting of the equator and the prime meridian out here. But his argument was, well, this is ocean owned by Nigeria. This is technically Nigeria's water. So there's a little tip for you. So that's from Joshua, the center of the world. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The primary. That's I was going to say. Can you correct his thinking?
Oh yeah, it's like okay, so
So that's an important thing, and let's just go back to clarify that because I noticed that as it was one of the exam question choices that I was looking at last night. Equator, like the latitudes, are circles. Longitudes are arcs. Yep. They actually do not go all the way around. As Layton pointed out, on the other side, it's going to be the international date line, which actually goes through the Pacific, right? So that's why that's not the case. All right. If we had more time, we'd go through and figure these out. Come on. There we go. Okay, so if that's location, right? If that's place, and we've got a way of describing, where things are. We also have enough. So here's the second big theme that we're going to talk about, which is region. And the definition of region is an area of Earth distinguished by a distinctive combination of cultural and physical features. Region is going to be both cultural and physical. When you're looking at your vocab, I want you guys to make sure that you're identifying both of these. I'm going to try to get through region here, you guys. So I'm going to take a little time off of our computer time to do this because I want to just get rolling here. I'm sorry. This thing isn't working the way I want it to. Oh, no, not enough time. I can go back. Oh, well, no, I guess not. Hang on. Come on. Come on. That's not the Mars rover, but that's an interesting thing that you thought that it was. It is a tractor. Oh, there we go. I just have to hit the other one. Okay. Okay. So, culture, we've talked about this idea of, like, culture, it was on your quiz. Culture is a bunch of different things. And region and culture are really critically tied together. When you think about region, you almost always think about cultural regions, but you can also have physical regions as well. So we're going to talk about a little bit of both, but I am going to spend the majority of my time with you guys today talking about culture and culture's impact on region. Okay? And of course, culture, as it's defined by our text, is what people care about and what people take care of. So it's their values, it's their religious beliefs. Culture is the things that we do and practice regularly as a people, the things that we care about. But it's also the things that we take care of. Within our culture, we have a food culture. You know, we have a culture of it's called material culture, of our stuff, the things that we actually take care of. There's a really great book that we can probably take a look at if we have all the time in the world. I could spend more time with this, but because this is one of my favorite things. Like, I love talking about culture. It's absolutely a fascinating component to being a human being on the planet. I think it's one of the things that makes us most interesting is looking at our culture. But this book, it's called Material World, and it's about how people around the world express their culture through their material belongings. Like, what do houses look like in other parts of the world, and what does that tell us about their culture? It's kind of amazing how much you can learn about a person's culture, about what they care about what they take care of by their home. I was just talking to my class this morning, my first period class. I teach the exchange course with the teacher in Thailand. For those of you who are interested, we teach a class at this high school where a teacher in Thailand Skypes in on this computer every morning, and she teaches about Southeast Asian culture, Southeast Asian language. We do Southeast Asian food, Southeast Asian said languages already, but so it's a really cool class, and it's a teacher from Thailand. Her name is Krutuk, and she's awesome, and you would really enjoy the class. I want to recommend it to you guys, especially after taking this class. I think you would really find it enriching. It's a social studies elective course. But we were talking about this morning. In Thailand, children, even after they're grown, even after they're married and have children, almost every single weekend go home to visit their parents. If you live in Bangkok, which is about 2 hours south of Suphanburi, the town that Krutuk lives in, you're going to go home almost every single weekend. And so the homes in Suphanburi have to accommodate all the family members. And one of the woman I stayed with when I lived in Thailand, she and her husband built an entire house on their property for their kids. That's the way that their material culture, their home, their property reflects a cultural value, which is that your children come to visit you every single weekend. So, and cultural landscape is another component of this. It's the combination of these social relationships and physical processes. And the word itself, or the term itself, cultural landscape, gives you the sense of what they're talking about there. They're talking about the culture and the landscape sort of combined. And, you know, this idea of course, each region has a distinctive landscape, but the culture has an impact on it. And people change our landscape. I have a couple things I want to talk to you guys about with regards to cultural landscape. And some of it has to do with my travels. I've been really fortunate that I've been able to travel to some kind of amazing places, unique places in the world. And I have witnessed cultural landscape on a lot of different levels, in a lot of different ways. When I was living in Denmark, one of the things that I almost immediately recognized was that in people's houses, and maybe Alexandra can tell us if it's similar in Norway, I don't know if it'll be the same or not, but in people's yards in Denmark, it's very, very common for them to have a hedge. Neighborhoods are divided, and house property lines are almost always divided by this sort of wide, and they weren't high, they were probably, up to here, or, depending on how high the hill was that they were on, hedge. And that was part of the sort of cultural landscape, this sense of territorialism. And I noticed Danes do tend to be kind of territorial about their property. And it came up in a conversation with my host father about how the Germans are always coming into Denmark and buying up property along the ocean, and that the Danes don't like that because they have this sense of territorialism. And some of that's based on history. I mean, the Germans coming into Denmark is something Danes feel particularly sensitive about. Why is that? Well, the Holocaust, but the World War II, right? Because Denmark was occupied by the Germans. And so some of this stuff, this cultural landscape has an interplay with culture, with history, and it's very distinct in different parts of the world. I think the next thing, this is a photograph I took while I was in. Can anybody guess what part of the world I was in when I took this picture? Looks like Mars. It looks pretty barren, doesn't it? It's not the Mars rover. It's a tractor.
I got you.
What do you think, Parker?
Desert.
Yes, it's a very deserty place.
Nevada.
No, it's outside of the United States.
Oh.
It's not Africa.
Uruguay.
Nope.
Asia.
It's in part of Asia. Technically, it's in Asia. This is in the country of Jordan. This is in the Middle East. So Jordan, which is north of Saudi Arabia, west of Iraq. When I'm doing that location, how am I describing it? I'm describing its situation, right? Relative location.
Yeah.
So relatively speaking, it's north of Saudi Arabia. It is east of Israel, west of Iraq, south of Syria. It's in this kind of interesting little spot where a lot of business goes on. But yeah, go ahead, Parker.
That kind of off-topic question.
Okay.
What's the difference between situation and relative location?
They're very similar. I mean, situation is just another way to talk about relative location. So I would say they're similar. How they would be separately defined, I don't know off the top of my head. They're on the quiz defined separately. Well, somebody look it up. What is it? How does it define? I would have to get my notes out and look and see what the difference is.
Not this one.
Isaac, what's your question? Iraq. Yep. Oh, yes. Well, there are rocks, and I'm sure there are things that they're west of, but no, Iraq and Iran. So those are the proper ways to pronounce
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Okay, listen, Abby's going to give us the answer. Listen up.
It doesn't have relative location, but it has situation that says the location of the
Yeah.
I got both of them.
Okay, tell us what the relative location definition is.
Relative location, position of a place relative to place or number.
Okay, what situation?
The location of a place relative to other
Okay, so
places.
you have to be really careful. So if it's asking you to identify those two things, if it's saying the situation of a place, well, that's not the definition of situation, right? Because they're not going to give you the word in the definition.
One says
But-
position, one says location.
Okay, position. So relative location is relating to position.
Yes.
Situation is specific to location. It's all this, it's the subtleties. We talked about that, right? Okay. So this picture is of Jordan, and what you're looking at is a feature of the cultural landscape. In the background, these are tents. Actually, these are trucks, and this is a tent here. And the cultural landscape in Jordan is really fascinating. At the time of year that I was there in the summer, in July, and these are Bedouins. The way that Jordan is actually set up, if I did a slice of Jordan, if I showed you, if we took a slice and I said, okay, so here's Jordan, right, the country of Jordan, and it's got actually mountainous regions, okay, kind of towards the center. It's very deserty towards the south, but if we just took sort of a general slice, as you go east, down here, there's a valley. This is called the Jordan Valley. And at the bottom of this valley is a sea. There's actually a couple seas and a river. But this sea is called the Dead Sea.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah.
So much
And I didn't go there when I was in Jordan, and I'll tell you because it's so hot. I couldn't take you guys. On the day we were deciding we were going to go to the Dead Sea, I was like, so I couldn't do it. I was just it was so overwhelming to think about going someplace. I was so hot all the time. So instead we went to Jerusalem, and we got to Jerusalem a day earlier, which was fine, and I'll talk about that as well. But this is the lowest point on earth, right? And I know it's pretty bad. I regret it, but that's the thing. Don't do what I do. Don't follow my example. Go to the Dead Sea if you get a chance. Okay, but so the Bedouins are actually a nomadic people that for centuries have hovered back and forth between the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea region and up into the highlands, the relative highlands of Jordan. And this photograph is a picture of a Bedouin encampment. In Jordan, the people of Jordan actually provide space in their fields for Bedouins to return year after year. You can see this field is not being used to grow anything. It's midsummer. And because of water shortages in Jordan, they don't actually have the ability to grow food in all regions. In some parts of Jordan they can. In some parts of like southern Jordan, as they get closer to the valley, they can grow more food. But here, this is a component of the cultural landscape. So you see this interplay between this nomadic people, the Bedouins, and this region where they're going back and forth in a really kind of unique way, or at least something that is unusual to us. We don't really have these kinds of situations, but do we have nomadic people in this country? We absolutely do. A lot of them are migrant farm workers. Army families, in some senses, are nomadic, yeah. Not for the same reason. This is a photograph of the Jordan Valley. And this is actually looking at it from the south, from the north. So this is the Mediterranean Sea. What country is this that I told you was to the west of Jordan? I think I heard it. Israel. Yep, Israel. Iraq is over here. It's over here. Saudi Arabia is down here. Actually, Saudi Arabia, this is the Sinai, this is Egypt. Saudi Arabia is over here. Okay. But again, the cultural landscape, the reason I kind of wanted to show you guys this is because this interplay between the landscape, the actual physical environment, and the people, the culture, and politics too is really fascinating. This is a great example. Look at, what's the difference between this and this? Look at how much greener it is. Yeah. So much greener. This is the Sea of Galilee, by the way. Oops. Hang on. So I actually, that's okay, because I was going to show you guys this anyway. I was going to take you to Google Earth. There you guys, yeah, there we are. Well, okay, I won't take the time right now. Maybe I'll start the next class by showing you this on Google Earth. But the thing I wanted to show you or talk to you about was that one of the major bones of contention between the Jordanian people and the Israeli people is that the Israelis actually have a really sophisticated water supply network where they take a lot of water from underground aquifers. They've developed this infrastructure that's really powerful, that's really useful. And so Israel has an enormous farming industry. As you drive through eastern Israel, it's filled with like banana plantations and palm trees and all kinds of things. And you're coming out of this extremely barren region. And there's a lot of resentment by the people of Jordan because they feel that the people of Israel take an unfair amount of water. But again, humans having this enormous impact on what this landscape actually looks like is part of this cultural landscape. And it's part of the tension that exists between the two countries. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and we are going to work on your quizzes, and we'll get back to this in our next lecture. All right.